Welcome to All Home Care Matters, the show where we discuss all things home care, with discussions on important age-related matters and topics. Brought to you by Enriched Life Home Care Services, the #1 rated home care provider in Michigan by Top Rated Local.
Hello, and welcome back to All Home Care Matters. If this is your first time visiting us here at the show, we want to say thank you for taking time out to be with us today. We appreciate how valuable everyone's time is, and that's why we try and make each episode here at All Home Care Matters something that will hopefully matter to you. Today, we are honored and privileged to welcome two very special guests from the United Kingdom, Mr. Adam Purnell and Mr. Mark Topps. Both are the co-hosts of the Caring View show, as well as advocates and innovators in the social care industry. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Alliance.
So let's start with you, Adam. For our listeners and viewers who may not be familiar with the phrase or the term John's Ambassador, why don't you explain to us what exactly that entails?
So John's campaign is a initiative to ensure that people living with dementia and other cognitive impairments, or anybody really now, in social care settings or in hospitals, have access to their loved ones. It was from an experience of a man called Dr. John Gerard, who was living with dementia. At home, he was absolutely fine, could hold conversations, do his gardening, and was able to live life to a really good capacity. Went into hospital for a routine leg ulcer inspection. The hospital ward he was on had a norovirus outbreak, vomiting and diarrhea. They shut down, wouldn't allow visitors, and within a 2-week period, he'd lost the ability to talk, he'd lost the ability to feed himself, he'd lost the ability to do anything that he was able to do prior to moving in. And it's the firm belief that actually if his family was still around him whilst he was in hospital, he wouldn't have declined so rapidly. So that's where the idea of John's campaign came from, and then I am ambassador for it for social care settings, to make sure homes and other residential settings for people adhere to this idea that actually families are important, if not paramount, to people's existence and maintenance of well-being of life.
Okay. And Mark, you're a tremendous advocate for helping those with learning disabilities to get access to vaccines and testing. Both of you shared with me before that you became kind of co-host and together on these issues because you found that you were both on a lot of the same conferences, Zoom calls, and different campaigns that led you to unite to become a tremendous force in helping to advocate for these families and those in care homes and in the care sector. When the idea came about to start your show, The Caring Show, what did you find? What led you to starting this show? Kind of what was that process like?
I think, yeah, when the kind of the pandemic hit, and I'd never met Adam before the pandemic, we were kind of being bombarded by government with guidance that was coming out sometimes daily, normally, at 9 o'clock at night, ready for the next day. And we had managers here in the UK that were struggling to decipher that, especially small providers that didn't have kind of back office support. And Adam and I found ourselves on regular meetings together, and we kind of thought, what can we do to help providers? And Adam had made a contingency plan. I'd kind of broken down kind of all the documentation from the guidance and put that out for managers in forms of risk assessments and care plans for both the people we were supporting and for staff. And we were like, how about we go a step further and we'll put together kind of a one-off show to about how they can do visiting, because Adam was already doing indoor visiting. The service I was managing at the time, we'd spoken about indoor visiting. They didn't want to do that, but we were still doing outside visiting, even though a lot of care homes just weren't doing anything. And we had a really good response, actually, that, managers, family, people using the services found that show really beneficial. We thought, actually, why not carry that on? Why not have a show that is all about health and social care, that aims to, not only inform people of what care is, it spreads a positive, image on social care, and is just a place where people can get support and access and find out more about what the sector is, and just to raise awareness, really, of various bits and pieces of social care.
Yeah, the Caring View, it really is a platform for everybody. We found, because Mark and I did a lot of media work during the first 2 years of the pandemic, especially the first 12 months, And what we found was the media cherry-picked the stories they wanted to tell, they cherry-picked the voices they wanted to hear from, and we were passionate that actually all voices matter and we need to get those voices out there. So the platform became an open platform for anybody that wants to discuss or have a voice in social care. So it really was about empowering our community and society to go, actually, this is what we want to hear and talk about.
I know you, Adam, you had shared with me when we spoke previously that, you were being interviewed by one of the news outlets or news shows or newspapers in the UK. And they were asking you a lot of questions that you weren't necessarily giving them the answers or sound bites, if you will, that they wanted. It was almost like they were looking more for a doom and gloom angle rather than, like you shared with me, the care home you were at the time and overseeing. You had no outbreaks of COVID and everybody was doing well, but they almost wanted your responses to be the opposite of that. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that they want to focus on that aspect rather than a positive story like these care homes that were doing really well without any outbreaks and.
So I think for those obviously in America who probably aren't aware, there was a term used throughout the beginning part of the pandemic in our country called the Ring of Steel around care homes. And that was Mark's grinning. That was the idea that the government had put in place measures to protect people within care homes, when actually the truth of the matter was we were being denied testing for people coming out of hospital to care settings. We were told there wasn't the capacity. And there was a large proportion of people who died during the first wave of the pandemic. So I think the media had cottoned on to this idea that actually the government were failing care settings, and they wanted to push out this narrative that care settings weren't managing, care services were struggling, which, was the case in a lot of cases. But I was trying to project the opposite and go, but you're scaring people now into not wanting to try new things and not wanting to innovate. Whereas I'm sat here going, it's working and we're doing really, really well. And this is the stuff we're doing to make it happen. Tell this side of the story as well. And don't get me wrong, some media outlets loved that positive ray of light in the darkness. And it was great to be able to say that. But there were times when it was a case of, oh, I'm sorry, that's too positive for us. We want to really tell the story that things are bad and not working, which is fine. But I'm a believer that there needs to be a balanced approach to stories. And Absolutely. It was this sort of trying to pin the government down for everything, which, don't get me wrong, the government did a lot of mistakes and were the reason that the outbreaks happened. I was just trying to say, we don't need the government to be able to progress. We can do it ourselves. We are the experts in what we do.
Well, and I know that kind of piggybacks on Mark's work advocating for those with learning disabilities to get testing, get access to the vaccine. And I know Adam has shared Mark doesn't like the attention, but I'll give it to you for him. You had a petition that had garnered over 500,000 signatures. And I mean, that's remarkable. I mean, in and of itself. And, what drove both of you to have such a deep passion and advocacy for this industry? Because I think we could all agree this is not necessarily something you go into because of the financial benefit. It's something you have to have a heart for, a passion for, and because there's a lot of other things you could do that would even be easier, right? What led you both, and I'll start with you, Mark, to really pursue this and take it to the position that both of you are at now with your advocacy? And we'll go back to you, Adam, in a minute. When Mark's done, you're going to be presenting to the House of Lords here very soon. So I'm interested in learning what led you both to this field and to this tremendous advocacy work you're doing.
Yeah, no, I joined social care when I was 17 as a volunteer, and a lot of my background has been supporting people with a learning disability. And I think over the years, I've noticed that they're just not treated equally, either by society or by the care sector themselves. And I think during the pandemic, we were seeing that they weren't eligible for, PPE. When elderly residents in care services we saw that they weren't eligible for the vaccine. And it kind of hit a nerve that actually, if these people were living in the community in their own homes, or if they were living in an elderly care home, they'd have so much more access to services that they weren't getting. And I kind of thought, when government released their priority list for the vaccine, people with a learning disability were right at the bottom. So they were after care homes, they were after members of the community, even though research and evidence had shown that actually they were a higher risk. And I think for me, I just kind of thought, do you know what, something's got to give. You know, the government has failed us in terms of guidance, because the guidance was all written for elderly, it wasn't written for young adults. So we were supporting people at 18, 19 that, you know, usually they might have lived in a care home, but they spent the majority of their day in the community, in jobs, in employment, and all of that stopped. And we just couldn't get them back into employment. And yeah, I just kind of, a bit like Adam, would speak to any kind of media outlet. And I think for me, the media obviously loved the negative attention. And actually, as much as we were doing, there was no give on that from government. So they kept coming back and back, and we're like, what's changed here? And nothing had changed for weeks. And it wasn't until we did BBC, which was probably kind of the prominent part. And then the next day we had a phone call to say, actually, we want you to come and meet with government officials, give kind of evidence, bring as much evidence you've got. And we managed to change that kind of policy on vaccines for people with a learning disability. So they went from being last on the list, which I think they were like number 12, to the second. So they prioritised people over 65, then people with a learning disability, which, you know, was a huge outcome. And I think for me, I'm still just a very big advocate for people that, you know, don't have a voice themselves.
Right.
People using care services, but also for, you know, the frontline care staff, because quite often they either don't want to speak up, they kind of accept the terms and conditions of their role, but actually as a leader within social care, it's our duty, you know, to pave the way for the next generation of leaders that are coming through. And actually we don't want to lose them from the sector, because I know in 10, 15 years, you know, I'll be bowing out or, you know, on semi-retirement, but actually they're going to be the ones leading the teams. And actually we've got to pave the way for them to have better working conditions. Otherwise we're never going to get people to join our sector.
So your petition that you started, that you got the 500,000 signatures for, was that the direct result of them reclassifying, if you will, the order of which people with learning disabilities would have access to the vaccine? Was that what that petition was?
Yes, that led to the conversations with government. And I think what was so strong is because even people with a learning disability who were living in the community, they still weren't eligible, because obviously they have the learning disability title. They were right at the bottom of the list. So I had people that I'd never met before were contacting me saying, we'll give evidence, or, you know, how much this is going to change our life, change our son, our daughter's life. So we had so much powerful evidence that actually when we met with officials, actually we were able just to present it. We had people that use care services that are able to give their own stories and accounts of how they'd be affected.
Well, I mean, in essence, you gave a voice to the voiceless. And I would think, you know, for anybody in their profession, they want to excel, they want to exceed, they want to get to the top of their profession and be looked at as one of the best in their field. And I think both of you, I mean, I don't know, it's just me on the outside saying this, but it looks like you both have reached that point. I mean, to actually change policy and give a voice to the voiceless, Mark, I mean, I think that is so commendable and just remarkable. And, you know, I can't commend your work enough. I mean, it takes a special drive, a special person, and a real special compassion to almost be selfish for those who can't be, but you're selfless in doing it, if that makes any sense, you know. And I just think it's tremendous. Mark, where's your next step? What's your next point that you're going after? What's going to be the next petition?
Well, the next petition will be, people ask me that all the time. I think for me, I'm still very passionate about kind of our frontline care staff. I've always been passionate about it. I remember when I was 17, 18, you know, on minimum wage, working 15, 16-hour days. And actually we need to change kind of...
For the workers.
Yeah. We've got to change the pay. We've got to change those long hours. We've got to make it more of a, you know, a role that people want to come into. Because actually our supermarkets here in the UK pay more than care staff, and actually you can do less hours for more pay. And we've got to change that, because actually we don't have the people coming into the sector. On the other end, we're losing more people than are joining. So,
well, and I know we've touched on that before, Adam and I, you know, it's very similar here in the States, where, you know, when you're working in the care sector outside of a facility, you're almost looked at as second class versus the ones working in the facility. Now, and I don't want to stereotype or put a stigma on that, but, you know, we have found that talking to care workers and others who are in the industry, because the pay is less, you know, and, you know, when we had, you know, the frontline heroes, and I think you guys had that in the UK also, you know, they were the heroes one day, but then they went back to almost being the zeros the next day. You know, it's like, you know, thank you so much, but now you've served your purpose. Now we're going back to the way things were. I do think one of the positives, at least here in the States, is we have found that more people, families, and even professionals have become more aware of what home care is, home health care, where before that, you just thought your care options were I'm either in the hospital or I'm in a nursing home, and because there's not that awareness and that education coming from your doctor's office or when you're being discharged from the hospital. I just talked to somebody the other day who said, she's a registered nurse, and she said, anytime I would help with a discharge of one of my patients, depending on what the situation was, we'll say Alzheimer's, because that's what we were talking about. She said, I would always give them phone numbers and resources for discharge, because once you leave the hospital, you're on your own, right? You're not going to put on a call light and somebody's going to come to your house and see, what do you need? But too often families that are getting discharged, they're not giving any sort of resources or support once they leave that hospital room and go home. So they're left to fend for themselves. And, I just think that, having a greater awareness of all the resources, whether it's a care home, we have adult foster care homes here, or, home care, home health care. Families, they shouldn't be expected to know those things, because you don't know about something until you need to know about it. And, this isn't a field or an industry that's per se mainstream where, oh yeah, I'm going to go see my doctor today. Or if, everybody knows that, but mom needs extra help and I'm helping her 5, 6, 7 days a week. I have a job. I got to work. I got to pay bills. Nobody's like, well, get a care worker, call a home care company. They're not given those resources. And, I just hope with the small part that All Home Care Matters plays, and having, remarkable guests on like yourselves, that whether it's in the UK, Canada, or the States, or anywhere, people are going to get to know more about these resources, more about these issues and what's available to them. Because at the end of the day, if my mom or my dad needs help, or they need care, or I need care, nobody's going to give it to me unless I know to ask for it. And I think having these kind of discussions are so crucial, and having advocacy like the two of you is remarkable. And I hope more people become advocates and kind of, components of change to, raise awareness for a very needed field. I mean, we talked about this previously with America. We have our baby boomers. When you look at the height of the pandemic, and, here in the States, we had, at one point, they commissioned one of our naval hospitals, ships that came in to dock in New York, and they were expecting to have to use that for the overflow of COVID patients. That's nothing compared to the baby boomer population that is all going to need long-term care in the next 10, 15, 20 years. Our infrastructure was not built with that in mind. It was built before there was the baby boomers. They came as a result of World War II, and right there before and after. And, there's a lot of change that needs to happen. Not all is bad either. There's a lot of good, but the infrastructure, the awareness, and I think the support of those people on the front lines and in the home care and the care sectors, they need to get the recognition and the appreciation. Otherwise, when they retire or they take new jobs, you got to have people to fill those replacements, and that's going to be tough to do. Adam, talk about your advocacy and your policy that you're going to be presenting to the House of Lords.
Yeah, so I mean, a bit like Mark, I joined social care when I was quite young. I joined at 18. My dad was unwell throughout my youth, and it was that sort of idea. Everyone's saying, go to university, go get a degree, go and do something amazing. And sitting with him in hospital and seeing what people were actually able to do to benefit people was a delight. And that's how I got the drive to go, actually, this is what I want to do. Week one of caring, looking after a chap, and I said, he's telling me this story about how he got shot down in a Spitfire during the war, and a nurse called Buzzer went, and I said, I'm really, really sorry, I'll come back in a minute and I'll listen to the rest of your story. And with that, he picked up his walking stick, and with language I won't use on this show, hit me on the head and said, it's not a story, it's my life.
Wow.
And I sat there and I thought to myself, This is what this is. This is people's lives. I'm 18, faced with mortality. I've just seen my first person die. I'm going to die one day. I'm going to be old one day. And the people we're looking after, the people we're supporting to live positive lives, are real people, right, of history and knowledge and experience. And that's what we need to cherish. So my journey through care has been to empower their voice and to allow them to be the driving force into what their care is. On the same token, I'm also like that with the workforce, the frontline teams, and those who aren't in the senior positions that Mark and I have been privileged to be in. And like Mark, the sector needs to change, it needs to evolve. But in the UK, there's a severe lack of professional identity within the social care workforce. People are seen as unskilled, people are seen as non-professionals, and it's something that needs to change. So as part of my role at the Institute of Health and Social Care Management, I've got an advisory group around people plans. And we got together and thought we need one for the social care sector. We need to put something together which recognises it wasn't a doom and gloom report. I'm very conscious about victim mentality and personal responsibility. I think we need to empower ourselves and go, something's not working, but what's working well? So we put this plan together and looked at what the current situation is in social care, what's good and outstanding at the moment. Another term that I'm a huge advocate against is best practice. Best practice sort of denotes that you can't do any better. And I think you can always improve. I think you can always get better. So we looked at good and outstanding practice, and then a set of recommendations for what care providers can do, what local and central governments can do, and what we can do together to actually improve the sector. So we published that in December last year, and we thought, no one will read it. It'll just be this report that everyone's just going to go, oh, another report. And it took off, and people were like, we've never had something like this. And, the big organizations in the country got on board with it. We've got more people wanting to contribute towards it. And we're privileged to be able to present it to the House of Lords in London next week, actually, on Monday.
Real quick, just to jump in, for those listening who may not be familiar with the House of Lords, explain what exactly that means when you're going to be presenting to the House of Lords.
Oh, you're asking me a question now, which I'm not fully competent in answering. Our government structure and the way our parliament works is a little bit beyond me at times. But all I know is we're going to be presenting it to the House of Lords in a room of MPs, and we're going to be saying to them, look, this is a solution. This is the voice of the sector. It's not my voice. It's not the Institute's voice. It's not the government's voice. It's the voice of the people living and breathing social care. And this is what they want to see happen. So how can we work together now to move that forwards? Our current government in office, I didn't vote for them. They're not my party. But I'm also a believer that if we're both stood on opposite sides of the door and we're both pushing, that door will never open. Right. So someone's going to have to give way. And I'm happy to be that person. I'm happy to sit down at the table with the person that I don't agree with and go, let's work together. Let's see if I can change your mind. Let's see if I can get you on board with this. And that's really what the people plan's about. And it's to open avenues now for further voices to be heard within our fragmented social care.
Well, and I think too, just talking about, the political component to it, and unfortunately so many things fall under a political, component, but anybody that is dealing with the care sector, the healthcare industry, I think, those that are making those decisions and either approving or disapproving of something, I would always hope, regardless of party or affiliation, that they have a personal experience with the issue they're deciding on. Because, if you took care of, a father or a mother or a loved one that had, advanced dementia, and you're trying to improve the care that people with Alzheimer's or dementia receive, and you're coming to me to either say yay or nay, but I've never had to go through that, I don't think it's a fair dynamic, in that sense. Just like putting somebody in charge of, the healthcare industry in your country who has no healthcare experience or background. I think that should be a prerequisite almost, just like, I can't go be a nurse at a hospital unless I've gone through nursing school. I really think that would make tremendous differences in a lot of ways things are decided and the way a lot of things are carried out if that person making those decisions has a personal connection to it, whether professionally or personally.
I also think there's something around us stopping seeing social care as a 2D construct. So people see social care as this industry of care homes, home care providers. In our country, we've got things like daycare centres, living care, sheltered accommodation, extra housing, etc. And I had a conversation with someone this morning, actually, and they said to me, I have no experience in social care and I'm just coming into it. So I said, right, have you ever opened the door for somebody who's got a walking stick trying to get into a shop? Yes, well, then you're part of social care.
Right.
Social care is society. Social care is everybody. And if we can get the mentality of our communities and our societies to shift and go, actually, we are all equal partners in the future of society, and we can all benefit people living in society and then communities. Social care, positive social care, if we want to keep continuing to call it social care, will only become easier. If we can get, communities are really good at rallying around in crisis. At the beginning of the pandemic, we had no PPE. Our government messed up, didn't order enough PPE. We didn't have any backstocks. And our community were printing visors for us. They were donating gloves for us. And if we can get our community to rally around in a crisis, it's the question now is how can we replicate that SANS crisis? Let's remove crisis from it. How can we get the communities to continue their passion and efforts towards social care without the crisis, and how can we use that momentum moving forwards?
Yeah, I had talked to a healthcare professional recently, and they said, you shouldn't just rally around when there's a crisis. It should just be a normal, accepted way of everyday living for the care industry, the healthcare industry. Don't forget about us, kind of like we were saying with the frontline workers. Don't forget about us now that you don't need us or that you think the crisis is over, because there's still people that need those care workers. You're just taking the crisis out of it, but those people still need the care, and they're still going to need PPEs, and they still need to show up, and they still need to, at the end of the day, yeah, you can get that personal, feeling of, I made a difference today, but if you don't get that appreciation from anyone else, it can start to wear on you, and you feel like, maybe I don't matter, maybe I'm not making a difference. And I think that's one of the worst case scenarios about all of this is, these people who are giving so much of themselves to go out there and make a difference, because there's not a Mark Topps everywhere who's going to get a petition going and get 500,000 signatures. There's not an Adam who's going to go and, present to the House of Lords from a report that you came up with new guidelines and trying to change the way the sector's viewed.
I was going to let Mark come in, but no, I completely agree. And I sit here and go the people plan, and you sit here and go something that I came up with. The people plan, honestly, the team behind me who helped contribute towards the people plan have been incredible. And I have to name drop Palvi and Giles because they've been fantastic on this. And they say to me, but you're the voice, you're a good voice, you're a great voice. And it's like, I'm not a voice for the sector. I want the sector to have a voice. So I will drag people kicking and screaming with me and put them on that stage and then go into the shadows just so that we can get other people to be heard and listened to. There's a problem in this country when we have our conferences, and Mark will, I don't know whether Mark will agree with me or not, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but they're the same faces that show up. They're the same faces that are booked. It's the same people that talk. And they've been talking for the last 15 years. And in the last 15 years, we've not seen any change. But it's an accepted normality that these people will show up at conferences because they bring the masses. And we need to change that narrative now. We need to change who we want to listen to. Do we want to listen to people who, yes, are experienced and have been here since, day one? Or do we want to listen to the new voices now that are bringing innovative ideas into the sector, not necessarily from social care? There are other industries that have achieved what we want to achieve. We want to learn from them. And it's about allowing these people to have that voice on that platform now, so that there isn't a Mark Topps and there isn't an Adam. There's just people who are really passionate and advocate as hard as they possibly can do, because it's possible and they can do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with Adam. I think the problem we've got in this country, rightly or wrongly, and I'll say it, is that I think a lot of the voices on our sector are people that, have companies and they plough thousands of pounds into sponsoring award shows and advertisements. And they're the voices that, for some reason, are the ones that are invited everywhere. And actually, that's wrong. It should be people that are using care services. It should be the frontline staff. It should be the registered managers that are actually having a voice, because they're the ones that are doing the roles. They're the ones that actually know what's actually impacting them and not impacting them. And that's definitely got to change here in the UK.
Well, I also think, you guys, even the families who are receiving the benefits of the care sector in these care homes, I think that's powerful too, because they can say firsthand how it has helped their mother or, one of their loved ones, and, showing that there's real people behind the word care sector or social care. It's not just a phrase or an industry, that it's, people day to day, just like, I like to say, like our school teachers who are teaching children, they are, and deservingly so, they are, very, very, recognized and commended because of the tremendously important work that they're doing. And it is tremendously important, and I will be the first to commend them. But then why isn't a care sector or social care sector looked at the same way? Because in a way, they're doing a very similar thing. They're showing up every day, taking care of that person who can't take care of themselves or needs that extra assistance so that they make sure they get their medicines and they get the personal care that they need. I think they're equally as important, but I think there's also something to be said also for, the elderly. Sometimes ageism kind of creeps into it where, well, this person has contributed to society and, and what are they going to contribute any further? And I know that has been discussed in the past about making determination on, benefits and, care options and different things. And, it's horrible to think about, but, we just had a gentleman on the other day who, he's created this amazing platform, and it's all about, 55 and up TV. There's movies, educational shows, everything, and it's all geared towards 55 and over. And he's coming from Hollywood and Broadway. And, he said, unfortunately, it may be not so much publicly acknowledged, but he's dealt with actors and actresses who, have reached a certain age, and all of a sudden there's no longer any parts for them to play in movies or in TV shows because they've kind of aged themselves out, and it's not part of the demographic that they want to target with advertising or movies or whatnot. And he said, and that's just wrong. I mean, these people have, like, you were saying, Adam, when you, I call it, you almost got knighted by that older gentleman with his cane. He, he's a person and he has tremendous stories. And when those people are gone, so are the stories, and I mean, when you think about a lot of these elderly, they call them one of the greatest generations because of what they went through, the US along with, the UK during World War II. I mean, these people know what sacrifice really means, right? And they know what service to country really means. And all of our veterans do, I should say. But, they went through a time that was unlike anything we've experienced in history, and, whether you're a veteran or not a veteran, almost all Americans, and I'm assuming for the UK also, they played a pivotal part, whether it was in the manufacturing in the factories or, the women making clothes and supplies or the men going off to fight. I mean, there's that unification, right? And, slowly and slowly we're losing that population. And I think if nothing else, those should be, held at the highest esteem and get the care that they deserve. But so should the workers who are providing that care to them. And I just think it's remarkable the work you guys are doing. I want to ask you both what the Green Heart for Social Care Initiative is and what's that all about?
So the Green Heart. So here in the UK, we've obviously got the NHS, the health system, that is highly regarded, and they have a blue heart. And during the pandemic, Adam and I were thinking of ways that we could actually get the public to show their support to social care. And a lot of people don't like doing it verbally, and a lot of people, obviously, because of social care, wouldn't put that on their social media platforms. We come up with the idea of a Green Heart for social care that people could add at the end of their Twitter or LinkedIn accounts. We had a Facebook frame that was made that people could add around their profile picture. And it was really just to let frontline care workers know that actually people were thinking of them during the pandemic. More recently, the NHS has done a big kind of campaign around the blue heart, and Adam and I, more so Adam, has come up with a heart that actually is half blue, half green. So actually, we can work together, which is the health and social care. And here in the UK, there is that kind of merging happening. It's a lot slower than we want, and there's still obviously a lot of popularity for the NHS compared to social care, but actually we can be one, and actually we can unite for the better of the people using both services.
It's a symbol of hope more than anything. It's just a symbol of going, we recognise that people exist. We recognise people need help and people need support. It's not specific to the UK necessarily. Anyone can use it if they want to go, look, we understand social care exists and we're here to support you. Anything we can do to learn and to do more. I mean, I'm wearing our branded care badge at the moment, which, is fine. It's a representation of the care sector. You can only get it if you're in England, and no one wears them anymore. The health and social care secretary and the care minister don't really wear them. And it's a real shame. There's no sort of brand recognizing the care aspect of things. And we don't want it to be something commercial. We just want it to be something that people can wear with pride and go, I support social care. You know, there was posters and posters for the NHS throughout the pandemic and nothing for care. And although we want to be integrated, there needs to be a recognition for the social care workforce and the social and people who draw on it. And that's all we want to do, is raise the awareness around social care. It's, you know, it costs nothing. We don't get anything. Everything we do is not for profit. We don't get any money for anything we do. It's there just to raise awareness.
Well, I know here in the States, the Alzheimer's Association, and you guys may have seen this, they've done a tremendous campaign on getting celebrities and athletes to, you know, share their experience of a loved one with Alzheimer's or dementia. And, you know, that campaign had really taken off tremendously. Have you guys thought about an approach like that?
I'd love to get some celebrities involved. I mean, there were, and I call them token supporters. There was, you know, that during the pandemic, there were the celebrities that were always voicing, oh, it's unfair that people can't get into care homes. It's unfair that people can't be visiting. So Mark and I we're working with Rights for Residents. We're working with John's campaign. This is the work we're doing. We've written government policies. We're challenging this. We've got this petition. Come and work with us. Be a voice for the campaign. Be a voice for change. They never got involved. They never got interested. They just wanted to put tweets up that got attention. So we struggle to engage with the celebrities. We struggle to engage with those high-profile people. We're not adverse to it. We'd love to.
Sure.
We'd love to get some big names and big voices behind us to support us, to lend some, you know, influence or credibility to the campaign that we want to do. At the moment, it is just ourselves and a couple of organisations trying our hardest to get people on board.
I mean, to me, it sounds like you've done a tremendous job. I mean, I go back to, you know, you're going to be presenting at the House of Lords, which is incredible. I mean, if I'd asked you a year ago or 2 years ago if that was going to be possible, what would you have said?
I think if you'd have asked me 2 years ago what I'd be doing, I'd still be advocating. You know, I was planning on trying to put a curriculum in place for John's campaign prior to the pandemic, and I was looking at intergenerational care models that we could actually merge youth clubs and care homes together and do all sorts of different things. So if you'd have asked me 2 years ago what I've been doing, I'd have been saying I'm still changing the face of care, but I've been doing it at a slower rate. Whereas now I feel like I don't need to shout as much. I'm not having to shout as much because people are starting to listen. So it's great to be able to be at that table now and having that voice heard. I still shout and I still, you know, do grumble every now and then, but not as much as I used to. So yeah, I wouldn't have pictured myself being in this position 2 years ago. I wouldn't have thought we'd have had a chat show that's been running almost 12 months and the people and the stories that we've engaged with. I wouldn't have expected that.
Well, so the House of Lords, when you go to present there, Adam, is that something that will be televised, like Parliament is televised?
No, I don't think it will, unfortunately. I think it's more of an informal affair. We are going to try and get some press coverage on it. I'm going to put a press statement together and
you'll share that with us and we can post it on all of our platforms.
Yeah. And we'll get photos. I'll try and get some recordings because I've got to give a bit of a talk. You know, whether it's going to be twee or not, I've no idea. Probably usually be one of my inspirational sort of call to action speeches. But yeah, no, I'll share absolutely everything with you because the more we can do to raise that awareness, the better.
Mark, now I know you were or were not a part of writing the policy with Adam.
No, I wasn't. So Adam and I have had this conversation because obviously we've got the caring view together. And then we appear on kind of panels together. We're always very cautious that if one of us is working on something, people don't then get it mixed up with whether it's Adam's primary role, whether it's the caring view, or whether it's my paid role. So yeah, we kind of differentiate in different bits and pieces, but 100% back Adam and do anything to support him. But yeah, no, I have nothing to do with this plan.
Will you be joining him as support when he presents?
I'd love to be there, but my wife is having surgery on the same day, so I'll be actually hospital. I'll be in London. I'll be probably right around the corner, but I'll be in a hospital next to a bed, unfortunately.
Okay. I just think it's very remarkable the work you guys are doing. It's much similar to, you know, my views on things and, you know, how I really advocate for, you know, families, you know, to get the resources and the support that they need. Because my professional day job, I'm a case manager, and yeah, I cannot tell you the countless times I've encountered families who just had no idea, you know, and that could be about any number of things. Here, we're in Michigan, but in the United States, roughly approximately half of the country is non-licensed for home care. The other half is licensed. Well, that's terrifying, because the half that's not licensed, you could call yourself a home care company and there's no repercussions, there's no consequence, and there's no restrictions for doing so. And so many families aren't aware of that. When first, they're not typically aware of home care to begin with, and they want to keep their mother or their spouse or their father or their loved one in home. Like most of us would rather be in our home than being in a facility. And so they'll find a home care company, but what it's not is a real home care company. It's a person or a group. They'll say, we're providing home care, but are they insured? Are they licensed? Are they bonded? Are their workers covered? All these things that, if you're going to have somebody come into your private home, you're just assuming, if you're the family, well, they're a company, and so I'm safe, but that's not always the case. And sometimes it's not always a good situation. And then these families are devastated, but the problem with that situation here is, because every state has its own set of guidelines or whatever, you have to get all of these states on the same page and all agree to the guidelines for the licensing. And as you guys can probably imagine, that's a very difficult task. We had the director of the Home Care Association of America on maybe 8-10 months ago, and we're a part of it as well, but they're pushing hard to get the licensing done, but it's a very, very lofty challenge, because there's so many different components to it that's where a lot of the issues arise, is getting everybody on board. But the nice thing about it is, just like if you have care homes there in England, if England didn't have regulation over the care homes, Mark, you could set up a care home right there, and that's fine. But that doesn't mean you should, but you could. And so, you would eliminate all of the companies that aren't doing it the right way, or it's strictly a financial investment for them, or, they're just looking at the bottom line, where the bottom line should be the quality of the care, and the quality of the worker. Adam, it's remarkable what you guys are accomplishing. Mark, a petition with 500,000 signatures is just awesome. And, the work that you guys are doing for such a vulnerable population of people should be highly commended. And, Adam, you guys may end up getting knighted at some point anyhow, and I'll get to say I know you. But we're going to put the links to the Caring View, as well as the hashtag for Green Heart for Social Care, your initiative and campaign up. And I look forward to, getting some information about when you present to the House of Lords. I mean, I'm just from an outsider, you're wanting recognition, that recognition may change drastically after you do that presentation, and the news gets a hold of it and starts putting the respect on the sector that it deserves.
I hope so. It's one of those where we just want things to change now. We just want things to change. And I mean, Mark, I go on Twitter, I go on social media, I try and do the whole socials. Mark's on every night supporting people, every single night. Have you seen this? Here's a link for this. I don't know where he gets the energy from for it. I mean, we make a great team, because I don't have to do that, because he does it. It's amazing. But, it's just about empowering people now, and we just want that change to come. I mean, our chat show is doing a live episode from one of the care conferences in London in May, and it's just going to be great to be able to go, actually, this started as 4 people sat in a bedroom, and we're now at a stage in London opening up the platform for conversations. So people are listening. It's just slow progress.
Real quick question about the Caring View, your care show that you guys co-host. Did you do research into it before you started it? I mean, obviously the need was there, but is there other shows in the UK doing anything similar or close to it? Or
there's a lot of podcasts that have started definitely over the last kind of year. There's no kind of YouTube or live show. One thing that we've found is that here in the UK, everything's really regimented. So you'll send the questions before, almost like an agenda of what the response needs to be, whereas our show is people can meet us before they come on, but generally speaking, it's just a chat like you and I have had. It's free, you know, they can say what they want, it's live, so, you know, they swear or they say something they regret, it's kind of out there for everybody to see. And actually, it's that raw emotion that we want from people. Actually, we don't want people on there giving like a staged answer of what they think. We want their real view, their real opinion, because that's what's going to drive the change.
Do you guys look for specific guests, or do people approach you? Or
we've got a mixture of both. So we kind of, if there's an awareness week here or something going on, like we recently did nutrition and hydration awareness, just to kind of get the word out there a bit more, we can jump on the bandwagon of the hashtags that are out there. But generally speaking, it's kind of 50-50. We've got people that want to appear on the show, and then we've got people that kind of, A, we want on the show, or B, people have said, oh, actually, it'd be great to hear more about this. Can we have this?
That's tremendous. Go ahead, Adam.
I was going to say, and you know, 9 times out of 10, we'll have a conversation because it's an hour long, and we always sit there to ourselves, and you know, it could be something like data awareness, and we'll go, oh, how are we going to talk about data awareness for an hour? And then before we know it, we're 5 minutes over time, and we're like, where has the time gone? And we've probably spoken about so much that we've gone, all right, so that's an idea for another show. That's an idea for another show. That's an idea for this. And, you know, it sort of fills it up that way. So we're booked up. Every week we go live, and we're booked up till end of June now.
Wow. Remarkable.
Yeah, it's incredible. And like I say, we do it in our own time. So it's on top of everything else that we do. We don't pay for it. We don't get any money for it. Sure. We did no research on how to set it up. We had no idea about podcasting and videos before, and we still have no idea really.
Well, I watched a few minutes the other day preparing to talk to you guys, and I just think it's nice because it's very casual, very, you know, it's formal, but it's informal. You know what I mean? It's not stuffy. It's very, you know, very laid back, and, you know, it's a relaxing conversation. You know, you don't have to worry about stats and figures, and, you know, and I'm sure doing it live, I can't imagine the challenges that might present at some point. Because ours is not live. Ours is always recorded, because that way we can edit it and, you know, add people's links and everything in. But I just think it's great, because I think there needs to be more of that online. That's kind of how, you know, All Home Care Matters started. Was we were looking, and we really were looking here in the States more so, and we saw, yeah, like Mark said, there's a lot of podcasts, not a lot of YouTube shows, and the podcasts that are out there, very, very few of them are a regularly produced show. A lot of them were a year old, 2 years old, or, you know, they do one a year. And we're like, you know, this might be a great way for us, because we did a lot of community work there before COVID came, and we wanted to continue giving back. And, you know, just being a little naive at the time, it was, well, you know, we can help our community since we can't go in person. You know, our workers are still working because they're essential, but these, you know, care facilities and different organizations and centers, they're all shut down. And not realizing, well, yeah, okay, so anybody in the world can hear it, right? You know, perfect example is, you know, speaking with you two gentlemen, and, you know, we've had people on from so many different continents and countries at this point, and it's like, wow, you know, this is great, because it's not just us and our community having a lot of the similar issues. It's everywhere. And all those communities that are dealing with similar things, whether they're international or national, you know, the more people, the louder the voice, right? And, you know, one thing that is universal, regardless of where you live at, or your ethnicity or faith, religion, or anything, everybody deserves to be treated with the same quality and level of care, regardless of a learning disability or not learning disability, you know, old or young. And, you know, care should be universal. That should be one thing that is definitively universal, regardless of any of your background. And it's just nice to, you know, have gentlemen like yourselves that are doing such tremendous needed work and making an amazing difference doing it too, I might add, to be associated with you guys and to have you on the show. And, you know, I look forward to seeing and learning more about your presentation at the House of Lords. And then, you know, we'll share all the links to the Caring Show, your Facebook group. You have a peer group. I was going to ask you about that as well. Mark, I think, are you the one that runs the peer group?
Adam and I both.
Adam, okay.
Yeah, we both run it. But again, it's for people that work in the sector. It's for people that use care services. It's for anybody, really, those that want to know more about care. It's basically, you can just join the group. You can ask questions, whatever that is. Adam and I anybody in the group can answer back. And it's just to really raise awareness and just to support people along the journey.
How many members do you have right now?
Oh God, now you're asking. Adam, do you have any idea?
So we're just under 600 members in the Facebook group. We're around 700 on LinkedIn and 700 on Twitter as well.
Remarkable.
So we're reaching voices, and like you say, we've connected with a number of people from America and from around the world now, and it's because I think what we don't realize is how little infrastructure there is in many other countries around social care, and people are coming and going, oh, that's a really good idea, maybe we should take that back to our country and try and implement something like that. So anything, anyone that learns anything, even if it's just a 5-second thing that they've learned from us, we've done something that.
Exactly. Our motto is, if we do a topic about Alzheimer's or caregiving or whatever the issue is, or even listening to interviews, if one person gets any benefit from it, it's all worth it. That's all you can ask for. If it helps one family, and then hopefully that family then can help another family, and then so on and so forth. So it's remarkable, you guys. My hat's off to you. I commend you for the wonderful work you're doing. I appreciate both of your time today, as well as, the information we'll get up on our Facebook, our Instagram, and our YouTube and podcast. So if anybody listening or watching, they can reach out to you guys, and hopefully we'll have you guys back again. I think this is a great friendship that we have, and I just really want to commend you one last time for remarkable work that you guys have dedicated your careers to.
Thank you for having us, honestly.
Yeah. Thanks, Adam. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Firstly, it's just so humbling to be here today. To say that we came from nothing in August last year, Palvi, to publishing a report in December, to having it launched at the House of Lords in March. I think it's incredible. We often talk about social care, hinting that the problem lies with the sector, and it's this very thought process that hinders the reform so sorely needed. The problem doesn't sit with the sector, the solution does. This plan focuses on improving the situation for the workforce primarily, but the results will affect everybody, especially those drawing on care services. And without people needing care, there really would be no need for us anyway. So we need to focus on solutions for everybody. We don't proclaim to have all the answers, like John says, but we are confident that we have some. And more importantly, we know things need to change, and instead of talking, we acted. Social care is heavily fragmented, and until now, the voices of the sector have always come from the same places. Seldom has the wider sector been involved so widely in the future of care. The same is true for those using care. That's what makes this plan so special, so powerful, and so real. It's been written by the people, for the people. We've got our 5 focus areas: public image, recruitment, retention, well-being. We've got, I told you I'd forget, pay and benefits, and training.
You know it.
And each area focuses on what's currently happening, the good and outstanding practice, and recommendations that we feel will change the sector. There's 59 of them. And there's an abridged version if you want that as well. The time has come for us to flip the narrative now. That's why instead of just putting all the onus on central and local governments, we're also empowering social care providers to be a part of the change. We, the sector, are the experts in what we do. We have the ability to influence and inspire. The future of care, the hope for reform, great leadership, it starts at the top. It isn't about us and them, and it isn't about one single person shining. That's what this plan represents. I'm so privileged to have been working on this plan with some of the most incredible people I've ever met in social care. Many of you are in this room, many couldn't join us today, but Palvi, Jasmine, Joan, it's been absolutely incredible. And John, thank you for giving us the platform to be able to achieve this. Real innovation and change doesn't come from continuous moaning or resistance to work with each other. We can't be on opposite sides of the doors, both pushing at the same time. One of us needs to step aside and let conversation flow, let productivity flow. That's what we've done here. Real innovation is in this room. Real innovation is each and every one of you working tirelessly and selflessly for the betterness of social care. So thank you to everyone who's joined us on this journey. Oh, I get emotional all the time. Thank you to everyone who's staying with us on this journey. And thank you for making this possible. This is the foundation for our government to use to help drive the needed change forwards. Let's work together for the people.
Thank you for joining us today here at All Home Care Matters. All Home Care Matters is here to help families as they navigate these long-term care issues. We invite you to visit us at allhomecarematters.com, where there's a private, secure, fillable form where you can give us feedback, show ideas, or if you have questions. Every form is read and responded to. And remember, you can listen to the show on any of your favorite podcast streaming platforms or watch the show on our official YouTube channel. Just make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. We'd also like to extend our appreciation and gratitude to Mr. Adam Purnell and Mr. Mark Topps for joining us today to discuss the social care industry. Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you next time here at All Home Care Matters.
Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to you joining us again on another episode of All Home Care Matters. To learn more about the show and to connect with us, visit us at allhomecarematters.com.